Florida's primary ahead, just more than a week away. Candidates have their eyes focused on a winner-take-all state, and voters seem to have their eyes on changing things up in the GOP.
So this could be a retaliatory vote against the establishment from these voters, the new, young, and old, that are turning out to vote now, to say that they want somebody different. They want an outsider. Look at the three people that are in the top of the Republican field right now.
Our focus is on the young voters and what's important to them in this election. That's ahead on This Week in Jacksonville. And thank you so much for joining us on this first Sunday in March. Our roundtable discussion coming up in just a few moments. Right now, a former judge, a man serving in the courts since 1998. This morning, we welcome the Honorable Charles Cofer, Judge Cofer at Duval County Court, Division 8, which you were explaining to me a moment ago, until retiring just this past November. Judge, you're running for public defender. Why? I mean, as simple as it gets. Why did you decide you retire from the bench, you want to run as the public defender?
Good morning, Ken. I think it goes back to my experience within the criminal justice system. I was an assistant public defender for 18 years, 10 years in the homicide unit, and then I've been a county court judge for the last 17 years. And I realized the importance of having a strong public defender's office. Everybody in the criminal justice system understands that having a strong public defender's office makes our criminal justice system work better. And right now I view that that office is struggling, and therefore the criminal justice system is struggling as a result.
Part of the reason that we get to visit is because there is a campaign, a race towards August 30th, when the vote will be for this public defender's position. As I spoke with the sitting public defender just a week ago, one of the things we talked about was at least the feeling that there's an increase in violence in Jacksonville. How would the public defender's office, in your care, address some of those things or help bring down the criminal violence that we see here in Northeast Florida?
Well, I think the role of the public defender's office is very narrowly defined under the Constitution, and it is simply to represent people within the criminal justice system who cannot afford their own attorney. Certainly it's great whatever outreach programs they do, but they can't lose focus on what the role of the public defender's office is, and that's to represent people in court. And that's their job, and if they lose focus on that, then the criminal justice system suffers.
So a little bit of a two-pronged question here. Your last 16 and a half years, whatever it was, as judge, you've seen the state attorney's office working on one side and public defenders or private attorneys working on the other. How close is the relationship there between the public defender's office and the state attorney's office, and how close should it be?
Well, I know how close it should be because I grew up under the time working for Lou Frost when he was public defender and Ed Austin was state attorney. There was great communication between the offices, and there has to be communication between the offices. Right now, I think it's obvious that the relationship between the two offices is fractured. That's not good for the resolution of cases. It's not good for the criminal justice system. I know Ms. Corey very well. I have a good working relationship with her. We've had discussions about how important it is to maintain a relationship between the offices so that they can communicate over serious cases. And I'm sure that if I'm elected, that I will be able to do that with her.
So educate somebody who hasn't sat where you sat. Give me some of your expertise and judgment, if you will, Judge. It seems like, hey, if those two offices work too closely, then maybe I'm compromised as the defendant. I don't necessarily want you to be buddy-buddy in terms of professionally as offices. I want you to be at a distance because I want you just to represent me. Is that a wrong attitude?
Well, no, certainly they're in an adversarial position, but you can be adversarial while still being professional.
Sure.
By still maintaining your
yeah.
integrity in the court system. And that's how Mr. Austin and Mr. Frost were and how their offices communicated. They still were adversaries, but they ran between them two offices with integrity, professionalism, and so the criminal justice system was improved. I think if I'm in there, I can restore the integrity and professionalism in that office and reestablish the communications between the two offices that is now fractured.
Judge, we spoke with Matt Shirk a week ago and talked about his commitment to civil citations for misdemeanors among first-time offenders. It's a little bit of a controversial subject at times. What do you think about that?
Well, it's really only a controversial subject because of how Mr. Shirk has handled the issue. Civil citations for juveniles are a great thing. It keeps from stigmatizing juveniles who have minimal records, who committed minor offenses, keeps them out of the criminal justice system. And it's a great thing, and it's been in place for a long time. The unfortunate thing is that his office continues to use statistics that are inaccurate. If you go to his website last week, he placed a chart on there purporting to be from the Department of Juvenile Justice, indicating that there were no civil citations written in the Fourth Circuit for 3 months of last year. And he made a comment that that was unconscionable. If those facts were accurate, I would agree with him. It would be unconscionable.
You're implying they're not accurate.
Well, I'm not just implying. If you go presently on the website for the Department of Juvenile Justice and look at the same factors, you will see not only that there were citations written for those months, but my view is that they were increasing in number. So I don't understand why he continues to use bad statistics, posts them on a website, which are clearly incorrect. Anybody can go in and verify it. That destroys one's credibility within the justice system if you are using bad statistics.
Let me ask you about this last kind of topic here. Fiscal responsibility came up in my conversation last week. What's the right balance between spending appropriately for the good of the defendant and for the office, and then maybe overspending on an elected office?
Well, I will tell you, the legislature budgets public defenders' offices and state attorney's office very leanly. There's not really room.
Not a lot of extra, huh?
Not a lot of extra. You have to understand how to spend that money. I was very concerned when I heard his claim that he had returned due process monies to the state, because for the last few years, his attorneys have been coming into court and telling the judges that we don't have the money to take depositions on third-degree felonies. We don't have the money to do the mental health evaluations we need to do to resolve cases. That's very concerning to those within the justice system if he's making those assertions to the court and then coming back and saying, we had extra money, we sent it back.
You think that's mixed message there?
I think it's more than a mixed message, and I think it's something he's going to have to explain, and it reflects upon how his statements are viewed within the justice system.
Judge
that
Charlie,
won't happen with
Judge Cofer, great to get to meet you this morning. Appreciate the chance to hear from you, get to know you a little bit, and obviously, folks, there's a campaign coming, so we're to hear from both you and the public defender and all comers who are registered to run, I suppose, in the meantime. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So candidates have lined up to try and replace Marco Rubio as one of Florida's U.S. senators, and you've heard from several of them on our show. Up next on This Week in Jacksonville, my recent conversation with Republican Todd Wilcox. Stay with us.
Saturday Night Fever, the movie sensation, is now a smash hit Broadway musical. Don't miss Broadway's hottest dance musical, Saturday Night Fever, March 7th and 8th at Thrasher Horn Center. Get tickets at thcenter.org.
Make tomorrow awesome with Xfinity TV from Comcast. Right now, you can get Xfinity TV for just $19.99 a month for 12 months, with Xfinity On Demand included. Call 1-800-566-8080 today. Xfinity On Demand delivers thousands of hit shows, top movies, and more at no additional cost, so you can catch up on the latest episodes of TV's hottest shows anytime, anywhere. Switch to Xfinity TV for just $19.99 a month for 12 months with Xfinity On Demand included. Plus, ask how you can add HBO, Showtime, or Stars and enjoy award-winning TV shows and movies at home and on the go. There's no term contract and no early termination fee. Plus, it's all backed by our 30-day money-back Comcast customer guarantee, so it's risk-free. Tomorrow could be awesome if you call today. Call 1-800-566-8080. That's 1-800-566-8080. Xfinity, the future of awesome.
How much do we really know about Donald Trump? A federal court ruled that Trump's company hired illegal immigrants to help the construction process for Trump Tower. He even paid a $1 million fine. And his new hotel in Washington?
The Washington Post interviewed about 15 laborers at the D.C. hotel site, reporting that many revealed they had entered the U.S. illegally.
Trump makes big money off illegal immigrants. Can conservatives trust Donald Trump? Our Principles PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
This is Pastor R.J. Washington of the Titus Harvest Dome. Join us on Channel 4 every Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. We're going to have a God time. Yes.
I'm John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan, and I'm still surprised when a new client asks, is this consultation free, and how do we pay you? All of our consultations are free, and you never owe us legal fees unless we're successful. It's our way of leveling the playing field against rich corporations and insurance companies. My favorite Bible story, no surprise, is David and Goliath. For 25 years, Morgan & Morgan has been here for you. Call us anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Morgan & Morgan, for the people.
Let your ideas grow at the Jacksonville Home and Patio Show, March 3rd through 6th at the Prime Osborne Convention Center. 4 days only to shop, compare, and save. Meet Allison Victoria of DIY Network's Kitchen Crashers. The Jacksonville Home and Patio Show. Buy tickets online and save at jacksonvillehomeshows.com.
A local crisis.
How can somebody sleep at night? Why didn't he stop?
I don't understand how someone can hit someone and just keep going.
Tracking hit-and-run crashes, we made an alarming discovery, pinpointing the threats, showing you just how serious the problem is.
It just doesn't end.
News 4 Jax investigators pinpointed over 1,400. The streets where you're most at risk to be left for dead. News 4 Jax investigates hit-and-run hotspots. Wednesday on the 10 o'clock news. You're watching This Week in Jacksonville with Kent Justice.
Thanks for staying with us this morning. We're trying to help you meet each of the candidates for U.S. Senate from Florida in our latest interview. Republican Todd Wilcox. So thanks so much for joining us this morning. Good morning to you. So as we get to know you, South Tampa upbringing, kind of school of hard knocks as you came up. What inspired you to run for office here? You haven't run for office, and now you're going for Senate.
Good morning, Kent. Thanks for having me on your show. The list of motivations is long, but at the heart of it, it's really a grave concern about the effect that these career politicians are having, frankly, from both sides of the aisle on our constitutional republic.
What kind of effects do you see that you think are negative?
I really think that there's just an inability or an unwillingness to live up to their oath to defend the Constitution. I think at the heart of things, you know, that the lack of ability to solve problems and the polarization is embedded in the fact that they're career politicians. They bring no real-world experience to the table.
So let's talk about some of your real-world experiences. And as I look at that, background suggests an interest in national security, former CIA caseworker, combat veteran. So how would your background impact your interest, your focus, if you were in Washington in the Senate?
Sure. Well, you know, it started out in the military. I served in combat during Desert Storm with the 101st Airborne Division as an infantry platoon leader, and then later joined the CIA after having had command of a Special Forces A team. So there's 16 years of real-world experience in national security and foreign policy, hands-on. I mean, literally been to combat twice and been on the front lines of the global war on terrorism. I speak Arabic. I understand the way our enemies think. I understand more so than any other candidate in this race the nuances of the Middle East, and I know what it's going to take to destroy ISIS. So I bring to the table 27 years of real-world experience in national security, but not only in national security, but in the economy as well. For the last 10 years, I've been growing 3 separate businesses that I founded and started that have created 600 jobs, and 80% of which are veterans. So there's some real-world experience not only in national security, but in the economy as well.
Yeah, well, so what is your view, given that you've been an entrepreneur, that you've started some successful businesses? What's your view of the business climate in Florida and around America? In Florida,
Actually, I take my hat off to Governor Scott. I mean, the focus on creating jobs has been phenomenal. And we ran across each other in New York City several months ago, and he was there to recruit businesses to come to Florida. So again, my hat's off to him for the job well done for job creation. That said, the environment across the nation for small businesses is brutal. I mean, it's everything from a very burdensome, complicated tax system to overregulated economies. I mean, the debt situation. We have $19 trillion in annual debt, but that's not the whole story. There's $100 trillion of unfunded liabilities in the form of Social Security, Medicare, and retirement benefits for the military and the federal workforce that nobody wants to talk about. If we applied a balance sheet approach to our government, the way businesses have to express their viability, we'd be in bankruptcy restructuring right now. We would fire the management team, and we would be in bankruptcy. That sounds like a little bit of what you're suggesting. Fire the management team. The career politicians is how you put it, right? Sure. I mean, the Founding Fathers envisioned a citizen government, and that's what I represent, more so than any other candidate in this race, a return to citizen government, in which we go there to serve, not as a career, but as a form of service. And this is just the next step in my evolutionary service to the country. Let's talk a little bit about something that happened recently. Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia had passed away, and it was sudden. Now the debate that has
swollen up out of that is when he should be replaced and by whom. What do you think about that? President Obama says, I'm going to anoint my candidate, and then it goes through the process.
Sure. I was struck by how fast we all jumped into the politics of it. This was an icon of the Supreme Court, you know, a true patriot, a pillar of our constitutional republic. And we jumped right into the dynamic of, you know, the politics of today versus taking a few minutes just to reflect on the greatness of this man that we lost. He was the intellectual anchor for the originalist, for the textualist interpretation of the Constitution, the conservative wing of the Supreme Court. And so I really wish that we in the media and those who are running for office could have just taken a pause and reflect on what he's accomplished in his service to the country. That said, there is a task before us, and that is to nominate his replacement. The Constitution says that the president will nominate with the advice and confirmation of the Senate. And the Senate has been pretty clear that they're advising that he wait until the next president is elected. If he chooses to nominate a candidate, I think that the Senate should block any nomination until we find a candidate that matches Justice Scalia's conservative values.
It sounds like, as we go forward on this, it sounds like that isn't necessarily what's going to happen, but obviously we'll find out. We're finding out about you. I appreciate the time this morning, and best success as you continue your run.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on the show, and the viewers can go to Todd Wilcox 2016 to see more about my background and the 27 years of real-world experience that I represent in terms of bringing a citizen government back to our nation.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
So the Florida primary, Tuesday, March 15th. And, of course, that's the presidential primary for the Senate race. You're going to be voting on that in August 30th. Stay with us for more on This Week in Jacksonville.
If you've become disabled, it's important to call Harrell & Harrell because we have Social Security disability lawyers who have helped thousands of people navigate the government and what you need to do in that process.
Harrell & Harrell. Don't settle for less than you deserve.
When your bathroom was built, your boyfriends wore bell-bottoms. And since then, mildew's moved in like your mother-in-law, Sheila. You need Bath Fitter. Bath Fitter cleans and repairs all surfaces before they install their tubs and walls. And because their products are seamless, you get an air and watertight seal. So you can say goodbye, mildew, hello, beautiful new bathroom. All at a fraction of the cost of renovating. Plus, there's a lifetime guarantee, so it'll be around forever, like Sheila.
That's 501. Please pull up.
501. It's a penny. Okay, 501. Where's the penny? A penny.
Now that's a pleasant surprise. Just like finding out that Direct Auto and Life Insurance will always be there for you with a low rate and great services regardless of your driving history. Get a low rate without a credit check at Direct.
Can't wait to try these wings.
I know. And apparently the spicy honey barbecue sauce is so good, it'll change your life.
Yeah?
Mom and Dad, can I borrow the car?
Our son's in a boy band?
We have a son?
Life-changing? Maybe. Indescribably good? Definitely. The boneless wings meal with spicy honey barbecue sauce, served with crinkle fries and a small drink. Zaxby's. Indescribably good.
I came to hear Donald Trump's business plan for America.
It's really cool to hear him speak the truth. Tells it like it is.
Make America great. As a guy who's an international student, Trump is speaking out the truth.
He wants to make America great, and that's what I want to.
We have a country that we're proud of and that we love and that we're not going to lose. There is an assault on everything that we stand for, and we're going to stop the assault. We will make America great again. I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
Lunch is served. Today it's Florida flatbread with fresh tomatoes and bell peppers. Let's start by spreading olive oil and garlic on our flatbread. Then we add cheese. But what really makes this dish special are the Florida bell peppers and juicy tomatoes. When the cheese is melted and bubbly, it's done. Just cut and serve. And that's how easily Florida flatbread with tomato and sweet bell peppers can become a mealtime favorite. Look for the Fresh from Florida label when you shop. Remember, delicious is always served fresh from Florida.
News4Jax.com. Now easier to find what matters to you. Local breaking news alerts, top stories, right here. Less clicking, more local. Your local news, faster and easier. News4Jax.com. Download or update the app today.
Thanks for staying with us today. Our panel this morning, all members of the Jacksonville Young Voters Coalition. Meredith O'Malley Johnson, a Democrat, Keith Walters, a Republican, and Kamal Gasper, an independent. We covered a wide range right there. So the first question, how old is young when it comes to a voters coalition like yours?
Well, for us, we decided to go up to the age of 40 because I think you're still young till you're 40, right,
There are
Ken?
a lot of folks who want to be young at 40, yes.
But technically, the millennial generation goes to about 34, 35. But we had a lot of people who wanted to be involved that maybe were 36, 37 range, so we just went up to 40. We feel like that's a good representation of Jacksonville.
It's interesting to me. We were just talking, it was more than a year ago now that you formed. How many folks are involved, and what do you get out of it?
We have a great number of people that are involved with Young Voters Coalition, that are following us on social media, that are listening to our recommendations, participating in discussions, joining us on quarterly meetings to hear from candidates. I think we've had a great response over the past year.
Yeah, so quantify that for me a little bit. How many people is a great response?
Who subscribe to our email list? We have about over 500, and those are people who are, officially members of the Jax Young Voters Coalition.
Yeah. So apparently you don't have to be just a Republican or just a Democrat. No party affiliation is what we're talking about. So unfortunately, that means you're not voting in our primary coming up here in Florida, right? How do you benefit from it, or how do you contribute?
You know, it sucks that I cannot vote in the primary, but however, it's really important for me, someone that's kind of in the middle, that these are my core values. And, I don't resonate with Democrats all the time. I don't resonate with the Republicans. And so I just have to wait until that final general election to make my decision. But it's important. I think it's a good process, too, to hear from the Democrats and Republicans all the way through and then make a final decision.
So I want to talk about some of the numbers on what young voters are like or who they are. I want to show you this graphic that we created here about Duval County, and the median age in the area, 35, and the metro area is 37, so that makes Jacksonville one of the youngest big cities in Florida. We understand about 212,000 voters who are under age 40. That's about 39% of the voting population, I understand, and half of the under 40 registered voters are expected to turn out in this 2016 general election. So maybe even better here, too, millennials, who are they? Americans born between 1982 and 2000. So that means they now number more than 83 million. That's more than the 75 million baby boomers, more than a quarter of the population of the United States. So what stands out to me here is how important this large number of young voters are. And help me out here, because I understand that young voters typically aren't as engaged in the election process. They're not voting. So I would guess that you want to change that. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly what we've been trying to do. We started with the city elections last year and increased turnout a little bit. It's really hard to change people's voting behavior. But one really interesting statistic I came across was that millennials vote at a higher rate than Gen Xers did when they were our age. So about 10% higher in presidential. So in the 90s, when Gen Xers were in our age range, they voted about 40% presidential. So millennials are already more involved, which kind of goes against the conventional knowledge that people think they have about millennials, that we're not very engaged and we're not involved. We are, and I think one of the reasons is because of the economic crisis we went through in 2008, 2009. I think millennials were hurt especially hard by that, and I think that's made us more engaged.
So I just asked before we came out to do our segment here what the issues are among you. And you mentioned economics might be for you. That's not necessarily the message you have to hear from a candidate for them to earn your vote. Is that right?
Well, in the Republican primary process, we see that the candidates have to run so far to the right, and one of those things is on the social issues that evokes a lot of emotion in voters, and I don't think that reconciles very well with the millennial vote when it comes to having to pick a candidate in the Republican primary.
So social issues would rise up among some of those other things for you?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Kamal,
and especially for the millennial vote, I think.
Okay, Kamal, what about you as you're kind of weighing, I'm not tied to a specific color or a specific letter, you're looking for what really represents you. What are those issues?
Yeah, so I think it's several. That's what makes being independent, nonpartisan really cool. You know, we have economics, you have Black Lives Matter and diversity, you have climate change, you have women in business, you have African Americans in business. So you have a lot of things you can take as an independent, nonpartisan to look at and really say, okay, this is what's important to me as an independent. And while we may resonate with Bernie Sanders on some things, we may resonate with, Senator Bernie Sanders and Senator Clinton, there's some things maybe that we resonate with Donald Trump. And so really just with these debates and everything that's being put out on these candidates, there's a lot of research that we'll do and make a decision.
Well, let me show you a little bit more of the research shared with me about millennials. We were just talking about how often they turn out to vote. Millennials had the lowest voter turnout of any age group in the last election. This time, Florida is one of those states where the young vote may have the biggest impact. So this is from the Center for Information and Research on Civic Learning and Engagement. That's at Tufts University. Florida has more than 400 higher education institutions. People who are college educated tend to vote at higher rates. So this sounds like it could change things, right? This is what millennials want. You want to change things and get more people out there voting. And
we are the most educated generation ever. We're the most diverse education ever. So both of those things, I think, make us think a little differently about elections than the generations before us, like the baby boomers and even the Gen Xers. So I think we're going to see around 50% turnout for millennials in Florida. And that can definitely be the margin of victory. And it was in 2012.
So I'm going to work the table here for a moment. We've got about a minute and a half left in our segment, and I'm going to start over here. Have you already decided who you're voting for in the primary coming up on the 15th?
I have.
It was a long time coming, or has anything changed lately?
Well, some people have gotten out of the race, so we had to make some changes, but I think my second choice is now my first choice, and I think that's probably been pretty consistent throughout most of the primary period.
That's a Republican's perspective. Democrats' perspective, you only got two choices right there. Have you already made up your mind?
I have, and it took me a little longer this time. You know, I really like the kind of populism of Senator Sanders, and I like what he has to say, but I feel like Hillary Clinton maybe has more policy experience. So I have weighed those two. I think they're both decent candidates. You know, it does worry me a little to see kind of both edges of the party seem to be coming up with, you know, Senator Sanders obviously, you know, identifies as a democratic socialist, and then we have Trump that I'm not sure what he identifies as exactly, but I think he's pretty ultra-conservative. So I'd kind of hate to see that play out in our country because, you know, usually the last race, I think President Obama and Governor Romney were both pretty reasonably moderate choices, and now we're looking at like a very extreme choice possibly. So I don't think that's good for our country.
I think that makes the decision for millennials harder to make when you have two extremes.
Okay, so I'm out of time. We were just getting started, weren't we? I mentioned that we would probably get to that point where we say we want to keep talking, but I do want to let you know that ahead this week, Democrats, Republicans in Florida, they host the presidential candidates, and so we're covering the campaigns in Florida. So join me, News4JAX political analyst Jennifer Carroll. That's Wednesday and Thursday. We'll be live with you in our 11 o'clock news right after those debates. Thanks so much for joining us on This Week in Jacksonville.
At News4JAX, we're always covering the news, even when we're not on TV. Stay informed, on the go and online at news4jax.com.
Question for both candidates. Do you value